Imagine the ancient world, where the Greeks were building their city-states while, far to the east, the Persian king was uniting a vast empire. These two very different civilizations eventually met face-to-face in Asia Minor. Here, wealthy and bustling Greek colonies thrived along the coast, drawing the attention of Cyrus, the king of Persia, who aimed to bring them under his control. When these cities called for help, they turned to the Spartans, known for their unmatched bravery. Cyrus, upon hearing this, scoffed, saying, "I do not fear a people who gather in their marketplace to deceive each other with false oaths." Despite their efforts, the Greek cities in Asia fell and were subdued by the great king of Persia. 30 years later, King Darius encountered the Greeks of Europe. This time, it was the Greeks who struck first. The Athenians, supporting a revolt in Ionia, sent 20 ships, and their soldiers managed to capture and burn Sardis, a key city in Lydia. Darius retaliated by devastating the Greek cities in Asia, but did not forget the Athenians. It is said that he had an officer remind him at every meal, "Master, remember the Athenians." Darius then demanded submission from all Greek cities, symbolized by sending earth and water. Many Greeks, intimidated, complied, but the Spartans defiantly threw the Persian envoys into a pit, telling them to take earth and water from there. This marked the start of what would be known as the Persian Wars. Herodotus, the ancient historian, captures the essence of the conflict through a conversation between King Xerxes and Demaratus, a Spartan exile. Xerxes couldn't believe that a mere 1,000 Spartans would dare to confront his massive army. Demaratus assured him, "The Spartans will fight you even if they stand alone, and they are not inferior in hand-to-hand combat. They obey their law, which commands them to conquer or die, unlike your subjects who fear you more than the law." This highlighted the stark contrast: the Persians, a multitude ruled by a single, unpredictable master, and the Greeks, small, self-governing republics driven by respect for their laws. The First Persian War was a direct confrontation with Athens. Darius sent 600 ships, landing a Persian army on the plain of Marathon, just 7 hours from Athens. The Spartans, bound by religious customs, could not join the battle until the full moon, leaving the Athenians to face the Persians alone. 10,000 Athenian hoplites, led by their 10 generals who took turns commanding each day, prepared for battle. When Miltiades' turn came, he arranged the army for a decisive charge. Despite the Persians mocking the Greeks for their lack of cavalry and archers, the Athenians attacked with such force that they turned both flanks and then smashed the center, driving the Persians back to their ships in chaos. This stunning victory at Marathon not only saved Athens but also earned them glory throughout Greece, marking a significant moment in the long struggle between East and West. And 10 years after the first conflict, the Second Persian War erupted. This time, Xerxes, the Persian king, rallied an enormous force, reportedly numbering 1.7 million soldiers. The army was a diverse mix of people: Medes and Persians in sleeved tunics and iron armor, Assyrians with linen cuirasses and iron-tipped clubs, Indians in cotton with bamboo bows and arrows, Ethiopians dressed in leopard skins, nomads with lassos, Phrygians with short pikes, Lydians equipped like Greeks, and Thracians with javelins and daggers. Herodotus dedicates 20 chapters just to listing these groups. Alongside the warriors, a massive contingent of non-combatants, including servants, slaves, women, and a multitude of animals and wagons, accompanied the army. In the spring of 480 BC, this vast horde crossed the Hellespont on a bridge of boats, marching for 7 days and nights under the lash. They traversed Thrace, conquering the peoples they encountered on their way to Greece. Meanwhile, the Persian fleet of 1,200 galleys sailed along the coast of Thrace, passing through the canal at Mount Athos, built specifically for this purpose by Xerxes. Terrified, most Greek cities submitted to the great king and joined his forces. The Athenians, desperate for guidance, consulted the oracle at Delphi and were told, "Athens will be destroyed from base to summit." When they sought a more hopeful prophecy, the oracle responded, "Zeus grants to Pallas, Athena, protectress of Athens, a wooden wall which alone shall not be taken. In this you and your children shall find safety." The priests interpreted this as a call for the Athenians to abandon Attica and resettle elsewhere. However, Themistocles, a clever Athenian leader, interpreted the wooden wall as their ships, urging them to rely on their fleet and confront the Persians at sea. Athens and Sparta decided to resist and tried to form a league against the Persians. Few cities had the courage to join. but those that did placed themselves under Spartan command. 4 decisive battles over 1 year determined the outcome of the war. At Thermopylae, King Leonidas of Sparta and his men attempted to block the Persian advance through a narrow pass, but were outflanked and overwhelmed. At Salamis, the Persian fleet was crammed into a narrow strait where the Greek navy defeated them. At Plataea, the remaining Persian forces in Greece were annihilated by Greek hoplites, with only 40,000 of the original 300,000 escaping. On the same day at Mycale on the coast of Asia, a Greek army landed and routed the Persian forces. The Greeks had triumphed over the great king, and their victory seemed miraculous. But when examining the reasons closely, the outcome becomes more understandable. The Persian army, vast as it was, suffered from logistical nightmares, advancing slowly and struggling to find supplies. In combat, their sheer numbers became a hindrance. Their ships, packed too tightly, collided with each other, causing chaos. Furthermore, while the Persian army was massive, it lacked cohesion. Only the Persians and Medes fought with true vigor. The rest of the soldiers, poorly armed and undisciplined, were there under duress, ready to flee when unsupervised. At Plataea, the Medes and Persians were the only ones fighting earnestly, while the rest held back. The Persian soldiers' equipment was inadequate. Their long robes and felt hats offered little protection, and their shields were made of wicker. They carried bows, daggers, and short pikes, making them effective only at a distance or in close combat. In contrast, the Spartans and their allies were well protected with large shields, helmets, and greaves. They fought in tight formations, their long pikes breaking through enemy lines, turning battles into massacres. After the Persian Wars, although Sparta had commanded the troops, it was Athens that emerged as the true hero. Herodotus notes that Athens delivered Greece by setting an example of resistance and leading the fleet at Salamis. Athens reaped the benefits of the victory, with Ionian cities in the Aegean and on the coast of Asia Minor revolting against Persian rule and forming a league. The Spartans, being more adept at land warfare, withdrew, leaving the Athenians to lead this new alliance. In 476 BC, Aristides, commanding the Athenian fleet, gathered delegates from the allied cities. They decided to continue the fight against the Persians, agreeing to provide ships, warriors, and an annual contribution of 460 talents. This treasure was kept at Delos in the Temple of Apollo. Athens took on the leadership role, managing the military forces and collecting the contributions. To solidify their commitment, Aristides had a mass of hot iron cast into the sea, and all swore to uphold their oaths until the iron resurfaced. Eventually, a peace or at least a truce was concluded with the great king around 449 BC, and he renounced his claim over the Asiatic Greeks. With the war over, the purpose of Aristides' treaty came into question. Some allied cities refused to continue their contributions even before the war ended. Athens insisted that the cities had made perpetual commitments and enforced the payments. With the conflict concluded, the treasury at Delos was deemed unnecessary, and the Athenians transferred the funds to Athens, using them to construct monumental buildings. They argued that the allies had paid for liberation from Persia, so they owed Athens as long as she defended them. This shifted the dynamics, turning the allies into subjects of Athens. The tribute was increased, and allied citizens were required to bring legal cases to Athenian courts. Athens even sent colonists to take over portions of their lands. Thus, Athens became the sovereign of over 300 cities, collecting an annual tribute of 600 talents. With the establishment of the Athenian Empire in the Aegean, Greece found itself divided into 2 leagues, the maritime cities under Athens and the inland cities under Sparta. Tensions escalated into the Peloponnesian War, pitting Sparta and its continental allies against Athens and its maritime subjects. This war lasted 27 years and continued intermittently under various guises until 360 BC. These wars were complex, with battles occurring on land and sea across Greece, Asia, Thrace, and Sicily, often simultaneously. The Spartans, with a superior army, ravaged Attica, while the Athenians, with a stronger navy, raided the Peloponnesian coasts. A significant blow came when Athens sent an army to Sicily, where it was utterly destroyed in 413 BC. Then, Lysander, a Spartan general, acquired a fleet from the Persians and defeated the Athenian navy in Asia in 405 BC. With their allies abandoning them, Athens fell. Lysander took the city, demolished its walls, and burned its ships, and Sparta briefly dominated both land and sea. In those days, wrote Xenophon, All cities obeyed when a Spartan issued his orders. However, Sparta's harsh rule soon spurred its allies to form a league against her. The Spartans were initially driven from Asia, but maintained their power in Greece for some time through an alliance with the Persian king. However, Thebes, under the command of Epaminondas, developed a formidable army and defeated Sparta at Electra and Mantinea. Sparta's allies deserted her, but Thebes failed to secure recognition of its supremacy from the other Greek states. From this point forward, no single Greek city held dominance over the others, and the wars between the Greek cities were notably brutal. A few incidents reveal their savage nature. At the start of the conflict, Sparta's allies threw into the sea all merchants from enemy cities. In retaliation, the Athenians executed Spartan ambassadors without even letting them speak. When the town of Plataea surrendered, the Spartans had promised fair trials. However, the Spartan judges asked each prisoner if they had aided the Peloponnesians during the war. If the answer was no, they were condemned to death, and the women were sold as slaves. Similarly, when Mytilene rebelled against Athens and was recaptured, the Athenians initially decreed that all Mytileneans should be executed. Although this decision was reversed the following day, over 1,000 Mytileneans were still put to death. After the disaster in Syracuse, where the Athenian army was captured, the Syracusans killed all the Athenian generals and many soldiers. The surviving prisoners were crammed into quarries, left exposed to the elements without adequate food or shelter for 70 days. Many succumbed to illness, cold, and starvation, their bodies left to rot and infect the air. Eventually, the survivors were sold into slavery. In these wars, invading armies often destroyed houses, felled trees, burned crops, and killed laborers. After battles, they quickly executed the wounded and killed prisoners. In captured cities, everything belonged to the victors. Men, women, and children were sold into slavery. This was considered the right of war at the time. Thucydides summed it up: business is regulated between men by the laws of justice when there is obligation on both sides, but the stronger does whatever is in his power, and the weaker yields. The gods rule by a necessity of their nature because they are strongest. Men do likewise. And these relentless wars failed to unite the Greeks into a single entity. No city, not even Sparta or Athens, could compel the others to submit. Instead, the wars drained their resources. The real beneficiary of this conflict was the king of Persia. Rather than uniting against him, the Greek cities sought his aid against each other. In the infamous Peace of Antalcidas, the great king of Persia declared that all Greek cities in Asia were his, and Sparta recognized this claim. Athens and Thebes later followed suit. An Athenian orator lamented, "It is the king of Persia who governs Greece. He needs only to establish governors in our cities. Is it not he who directs everything among us? Do we not summon the great king as if we were his slaves?" Through their internal strife, the Greeks lost the advantage they had gained during the Persian Wars.